All right, I think we're here. Hello. If
Yeah.
you are new to this Facebook group, if you just found us from this event, Facebook event, hello, I'm Britt Steckel. I am a nurse practitioner and a yoga teacher, mindset coach, all of those kinds of things, and I organize this Facebook group here. So one of the things I've really wanted to get back into since coming back from maternity leave is interviewing my clients, interviewing people who I think have like a really interesting take on things, have some helpful information that you guys could really use. And so many people tell me that they find working in healthcare and just, I think being alive in today's world is very overwhelming at baseline. So Haley has some really helpful information about how we can stay present and grounded so that we can heal and prevent overwhelm, or to like help us get through moments of overwhelm while still staying grounded, because it's really easy to just like completely numb out or get, just feel like you're disconnected from your body, etc. So today I'm really excited to have Haley, one of my coaching clients. She's a Reiki master, ICU nurse, like all the things, mom, yoga teacher, and she has some really helpful creative ideas about how we can stay present and grounded during times of overwhelm. And this can be directly applicable to times at the bedside and also in our everyday life. So Haley, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Sure. Yes. So like Brittany said, my name is Haley Diltz. I spent most of my career in the neurotrauma ICU. I have kind of transitioned away from the bedside to do a little bit more health and life coaching. I teach yoga. I'm a Reiki master, all of the things. So one of the things that I've been really focusing on since I've left the bedside and personally struggled with is present moment awareness. So I have a little nuggets of wisdom to bestow upon you guys, how this translates to your personal life, but then also extends into your professional life as well. So yeah.
Love it. Love it. Cool. So tell us a little bit. I'm going to kind of like put a few things up on the screen to kind of help us keep track of things as we go, because most of the people in this group are a little bit OCD like me, a little bit like love to take notes and be organized. So if you have like a journal or a place where you keep notes, get it out. It's time. And I can't wait for you guys to have this information. So tell us a little bit about the ABCs of Overwhelm. So we're going to come back to this piece a couple of times throughout, because I think it's so helpful. It's like directly applicable to our practice at the bedside, and it can be used in our everyday life. So tell us a little bit about the ABCs of Overwhelm.
Yeah, this is just a quick little technique that you can tap into, really anywhere, the bedside and beyond. But we all kind of have that window of tolerance, and any one thing can push us outside of that window at any given time. And when we have that awareness and we can recognize that we're in a state of overwhelm, we can utilize this tool. So it's a quick ABCs of Overwhelm, which is awareness, breath, and choice. So it's one of those things that you can quickly tap into and really draw yourself into experiencing the present moment when you need it the most. So one of the things about awareness is really just taking a step back, creating a little bit of space between what you're actually experiencing. So stepping into that role of the observer and asking, what is actually happening right now? What do I know to be true? Is my patient getting sicker but stable? Is my family member scared? Is my doctor down the room in a procedure with another patient? So really taking what your all-consuming experience may feel like and actually taking a step outside of that and asking yourself, what do I actually know to be true? Rather than the story we're attaching to it.
I love that. That is so similar to the question that I heard. It was I think it was like kind of formulated from the book, The Power of Now. But like the question that helped heal my anxiety was like, is there actually really anything wrong right now? Like, is there actually an emergency right now? And just kind of like becoming aware of that instead of like just letting your nervous system act as if there is an emergency. So it sounds kind of similar. So it probably could be helpful for both overwhelm and anxiety too. Which I think are similar.
I realized that I had such high functioning anxiety for the longest time, but it was masked so well within the nursing profession, especially in the ICU. You're taking a lot of taking on high acuity assignments. You have this wonderful capacity to have memories and store past experiences, and also have the ability to, you know, have these future predictions, which helps you keep patients alive and safe, because you can utilize these past experiences to address anticipatory needs. But it really does pull you out of what is actually happening in that moment. What is the most important thing happening in that moment, and being able to separate these experiences as being different and unique. So that's one of the most, I guess, easiest ways to really assess your environment in any given moment.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and then after you kind of really analyze what is happening, what do you know to be true right now, being able to tune into your breath is the next step of that. You always want to kind of meet yourself where you are in these moments. And the easiest way to do so is to bring your awareness and your attention to your breath. So how am I breathing? Bonus points if you can actually physically, touch your chest or place your hand on your belly. Where is my breathing at? Is it fast? Is it slow? Am I restless and dizzy because I'm blowing off too much CO2? Maybe I'm breathing really fast and shallow. And the idea is to really be able to regain awareness, but more so control. Can I slow my breath down? Can I keep it steady? One of the best ways to breathe when you're bringing yourself into an experience of self-awareness and an experience of the present moment, because the present moment isn't a place that we arrive to. It isn't a place, it isn't a destination, it is not a noun at all. It is an experience. So how am I breathing? How am I interacting with this experience? And then how can I regain control to shift how I'm experiencing the present moment? So if you are familiar with a lot of different breathing techniques, whether it's in yoga or meditation classes that you may take, a lot of times there's a pause between the breath. And when you're bringing yourself into an experience of the present moment, you actually don't want to have that pause, because your mind wanders in the pause. You want to have a steady, continuous ingoing and outgoing rhythm. And it keeps your attention on your breathing, and it keeps your attention in the present. So you want to assess really what is happening. You want to bring your awareness to your breathing. Can you slow your breathing down? Can you keep it continuous? Can you keep it steady? And then by doing that, you're able to put yourself into a position where your capacity for choice expands. So a lot of just experiencing the present moment is recognizing that there is a possibility to choose. And when we're wrapped up in our experiences, it really is. This is the good stuff. And when we're too consumed with our future thinking, we really diminish the capacity for choice to exist, because then we're just reacting instead of responding.
So, two things that stick out to me. One, how similar is this to the nursing process? Assess, diagnose. Like we're literally assessing first, and then we're like, okay, what's the problem here? What's it looking like? And then we're choosing an intervention, and then we can reevaluate. It's like very, very similar, which I love.
It's like the next level up from the nursing process, because you're inviting mindfulness into it. So you're not just following this algorithm that you're taught in nursing school. If, X happens, then, you do Y and then Z. It's really inviting this extra layer in where you as the healer are empowered. You have a little bit more control of the situation, and you then have a greater, availability and access to choice, but you then also have the wisdom and I want to say the presence to be able to make an aligned choice. So again, just following the algorithm, we're actually making the most aligned, right choice for that moment and that unique situation.
I love that. So I kind of like, that's such a good, I like that we just started right in on this, is like, that's such a good description of what we want to achieve. That's like, we're at A, we want to be at B, like we want to have that as a skill. What might we be experiencing if we know we need to build this skill? So like, this is the question that I kind of pulled from the notes, is like how are we, like, what is mindlessness in nursing look like? What does mindlessness at the bedside look like?
Right.
This question, I think, is kind of sums it up. Tell us a little bit more about like what's the state of like mindlessness at the bedside?
Yeah, so I'm curious if anyone who's here has watched the replay, has had the experience of, you do your 12 or 8 hour shift and you walk away and you're just like, what the hell did I do today? Like, that you're physically exhausted, your back hurts, your feet are tired. There's this heaviness to your body. You know that you're emotionally exhausted. Maybe you have some brain fog, you can't think straight, or, you find your mind wandering, but you really can't focus on anything. You're irritable, you're restless. Or it could be the opposite of that, where you pick out one tiny detail of the shift and then you ruminate on that. And maybe you give it way too much attention than it deserves, instead of really trying to understand and move through that. So I wonder if anyone's kind of left the shift, felt this feeling of, oh my God, I don't really know what I did, or having that feeling where something just doesn't sit right. We kind of all have that feeling where something just feels kind of stuck and stagnant. We don't really know how to put our finger on it, but you're having trouble integrating the shift, to be able to process it, move forward, come home into your personal life, be a good roommate, a friend, a partner, a parent. And by integration, I mean understanding in motion. Integration, understanding, it is a fluid process. It is an elastic process, because the present moment is ever changing. So is our process of understanding and feeling. And so we really want to be able to integrate, which means that we have this understanding of what is unfolding for us in real time. That way we are able to compassionately be with it. And we can compassionately sit with what we're going through, even if it's a little uncomfortable, then we can transform it. And we don't attach those stories, or identify with those emotions that are coming up, or sometimes, whether it's subconscious or conscious, actually shut ourselves off to feeling those things. And that's where energy can kind of get stuck and stagnant. We really don't know where it's coming from or where it lives. We just can't shake that feeling. That's kind of when I think I want to be a little bit more present with my experience at the bedside. I want to understand this a little deeper, because I want to be able to move through it and move on with my life, so that I have a greater capacity to fill my cup, so that I can create this surplus from which I serve others.
So good. And I think that that's a really helpful way to just assess yourself in the moment, of asking, what am I experiencing right now? What am I feeling right now? So that you don't necessarily have to bury that emotion or that experience to deal with it later. You may have to deal with it later too, right? Not everything that we experience can be dealt with in the present moment at the bedside, because, right, we're holding this safe space and container for people on sometimes their most complicated or sad or, emotionally turbulent days or experiences. But we don't have to abandon ourselves to hold that space. So I think that that's a really good way to kind of just it's kind of emotional, energetic hygiene throughout the day. Instead of letting yourself get just filthy and bogged down by all of these heavy emotions, you can kind of okay, how can I clean house? How can I be present? How can I just breathe with this? How can I label it and just know that it's there for, processing maybe later. But I think that that's kind of a as you go approach that is probably super healthy.
No, and you're absolutely right. And this is where a lot of this resiliency building and practice comes from. It is this continuous hygienic process, if you will, because not every shift is going to give you the warm and fuzzy feels. You may not feel, you may be making an impact, but you may not feel like you're making the impact that you want to every shift. Or you might just have a shift or a particular situation, a conversation, a family member. It could be the tiniest things that can be really difficult. And if we aren't able to really meet it in the moment and don't choose to circle back around to deal with it later, because sometimes we don't have a choice. Sometimes we're in the middle of a code, and you're not going to be in the middle of chest compressions being like, I'm uncomfortable. Sometimes you kind of have to check and realize that, oh gosh, there is something going on inside of me that doesn't feel really great. I don't know where it's coming from. I'm going to have to circle back around and address this later. And that's quite okay. But every shift may pose different challenges, and boards, but the ability to be able to be present and more gracefully navigate through these difficult and challenging situations is there. And becoming present and experiencing being present at the bedside allows you, or at least sets the conditions for you to move more gracefully through it. So it really is a skill. You have to sharpen it. You have to practice. And by beginning a present moment awareness practice, it can be uncomfortable, especially if you're not used to being present. Not know how that feels in our body because we're so used to living up in our thinking brain. And by no fault of our own, that's what we're taught within our traditional curriculum. But what we're not taught is how to energetically move throughout our day so that we can process and not bring things home that we want to, but that also aren't going to linger with us for the rest of our shift.
So good. You mentioned this phrase, present moment awareness, and I have talked about this a fair bit a while ago, but not recently. So if you're new to this group, this could be a really helpful way or a really good time to kind of like, just kind of highlight like what that concept is. And if you are watching this, like either in Haley's page later or in Kajabi when we save it for our clients or wherever you're watching this, like let us know what your interpretation is of this concept, because I know I had never heard of that present moment awareness piece until I got kind of deep into a yoga practice, but it's so helpful in healthcare. So I'd love to hear a little bit about like, what is your definition of present moment awareness? Like, tell us what that is for people who are new to that concept or who want a refresher.
Yes, no, I love it. And I mean, I could dive down this rabbit hole for a very, very long time. But present moment awareness, we kind of touched on it earlier, is not a place. It is not somewhere that you arrive to. It is an experience, a beingness, if you will. So it is the experience of being aware of our aliveness in any given moment. So as humans, we have this beautiful gift of being conscious, and it allows us to store these memories and make predictions into the future based on past experiences, and that can alter the way that we behave in the present. The problem is we can get stuck in either one of these two thought cycles, in the past or the present, and we really kind of tune out to what the experience to being alive is for us right now. So, yes. So becoming aware of that is stepping into the experience of being alive. And it can only happen right now in the present. So we have access to it all of the time. But to recognize that it is changing and it is elastic, and the capacity to which we can experience the present may change from day to day, from moment to moment, is something that we have to recognize as well. So that self-compassion piece comes into it, because you might step into the present moment, and like I said, it may be uncomfortable or unfamiliar. So to really compassionately be with what that experience is like for you helps to give you a greater understanding into your own self-study. And it's that yogic philosophy, svadhyaya. How can I learn more about myself? And with that being said, each person's experience of the present moment is uniquely your own. So what's universal is that we're aware of the experience of being alive. And what is extremely unique is that experience is very different for each and every one of us.
I love that. And in your notes, you had mentioned that definition by Jon Kabat-Zinn of like, what is mindfulness?
Yes.
It's like, tell us a little bit more about this. I kind of just summarized it in the notes here for for those of us who take notes at home. But tell us a little bit more about his definition of it, and then we're gonna move on to like, I want to see like, what does this translate to looking like in the bedside? So little touch on this definition first, and then I would love to like figure out how we can bring this to the bedside.
Of course. So when we're able to step into, being aware of our experience in the present, then we open up the opportunity to practice mindfulness. We can be mindful within that moment. That's that choice, right? So Jon Kabat-Zinn defines mindfulness very frank and very potent, and I love it. So he defines it as awareness that arises from paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally. And then sometimes he'll add in service of self-understanding and wisdom. And I love that. So it really is the ability to become aware and then move from being in a situation to being the observer of your situation. So it creates a little spaciousness between, the experience that you're currently having and the programming and conditioning, the stories that you bring to the table. A lot of times our stories influence the way that we express and perceive the present moment. So when you're able to create a little space between the two, you're able to mindfully step in and really experience it for what it is and recognize that your capacity, again, for choice to exist is infinite. And whatever you choose to do with those choices is up to you. You might step into the present moment and choose to do nothing. That's okay. The point of it is to really recognize that you have access to so much more information than you would if you were to just live your life within your critical thinking brain. So by becoming present and more mindful, you're really opening up the line of communication between your body and your mind. So we're getting outside of our heads. We're accessing, I guess, the mind beyond the mind, if you will, because our body is perceiving and consuming all of this information in the present that we don't always have access to because we're living lives just within our heads. So when we're able to, again, take space, step outside of your brain, which can be really difficult, especially at the bedside, you're able to recognize that there is more empowered choice in a moment than you once previously thought.
It's like a superpower.
It is. It really is. So,
I love that.
It can also change our concept of time too, which I think is really neat. So if you ever think back and had a shift that either just like flew by really fast or you felt like it dragged on forever. So being present, I would love for everyone to kind of just pay a little attention to how does time feel when you're able to be a little bit more present in an experience versus when you're not able to.
Yeah, I think that like the other note I wanted to put up is like that idea when we stay in that overwhelmed, like just reactive space, it always leads to scarcity, not enough time, frazzledness, like holding your breath. It's just it's a vicious cycle. It perpetuates that like, okay, I don't have enough time to get all my tasks done, or I can't handle the onslaught of information or the emotional overload or things like that. Like I can't handle it. There's not enoughness. If we take that process of those ABCs of like, okay, awareness, how's my breath, do a quick assessment, see if you could do an intervention on yourself of just slowing down your breathing, becoming more aware, it reminds you that you do have a choice to be a little bit more spacious in your time, in your breath, literally physically in your lungs, like stop holding tightness in your lower abdomen, make room for a nice big juicy breath, like in all areas, and it can help kind of expand your experience of time as well.
Absolutely. So when you think about how this translates to the bedside, we kind of touched on it early on in our conversation, but we all have this window of tolerance. And this is a concept that I could also, blow out into an entire workshop. But in short, we all have this window. And the capacity for this window to open and close, again, changes from day to day because our lives and what we experience change from day to day. So anytime that we are at the bedside and we're feeling a little overwhelmed, we are getting pushed outside of our window because one day it might be a little bit more closed. One day it could be a little bit more open. We have a greater capacity to handle what is put on our plate that day. So by having a little bit of awareness in a present moment, you can assess, where is my window of tolerance and did I get pushed outside of that window? Really being able to tune into that before your shift even starts is a great way to kind of set those boundaries early on in your shift because you know where your capacity is before you go in. Then you can also tell if it changes throughout the day or night. So a lot of times in our curriculum on orientation, during, our experiences at the bedside, we have been taught in one way or another to task through our sympathetic nervous systems or our stress response. And we do it for good reason. This is how we keep patients safe and alive. But I want you to think about all of the other non-life threatening situations at the bedside that we enter sympathetically engaged with our stress responses turned on. And when we're doing that, again, we're oscillating between past experience and future predictions, anticipating the needs of our patients and our families, but we're really disconnected from what's actually happening in our bodies and all of this other information that we're receiving, but not really paying attention to because our attention is elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So little things. And I want you to really think about all of, Maslow's hierarchy of needs when you're talking about present moment. So, earlier on, I gave an example of, our patients getting sicker. We have a scared family member. Our doctor is not at our fingertips. So certainly we want to take in and be fully aware of what that situation so we can choose appropriately. However, there are a lot of other things that are just as important to become aware of in a non-life threatening situation, and they can be basic. So let's stop to think, let's tune into our bodies. Oh my God, am I hungry? Do I have to pee? Am I dehydrated? Am I shaky because I drank too much caffeine and I need to go, steal some crackers from the break room? Like, what do I physically need to be able to show up and do my job well, to be able to think clearly, to be able to slow down? So how can I put my body also in a place to be able to best enter the experience of the present moment? What sensations do I feel in my body and where? I think we've probably all left a shift where we didn't realize that our bodies were hurting or aching in a certain way until you get in your car and you're like, oh, what is that? When did that happen? Because again, we're just unconsciously tasking through our shifts. So to be able to invite a little bit of mindfulness into this, not only creates an ability to choose, but to choose to mitigate the effects of our jobs that, we only have so much control over. So it may not be, changing the environment or, the situation entirely, but we're changing our experience of that situation.
For sure. And I did put these questions. So one of the things that when I looked through Haley's notes, I was like, oh my God, these are so good. These are like 15 specific questions that you can ask yourself throughout the shift, right? During non-life threatening times, of course, to kind of check in. And I did, I put them in the comments underneath this video in the Facebook group. And then if you guys are watching somewhere else in Kajabi or whatnot, like, please ask us. If we haven't put the list at the bottom, just reach out to one of us and we'll put it in there. But I'll pull them up on the screen as well. But just kind of like maybe write these in your notes, maybe copy and paste them from the comments. But they're a really helpful tool for you to check in with yourself, with your patient. How can you humanize the experience for both of you? So that is a resource for you in the comments below. But so we can kind of just, I'll pull them up on the screen kind of a few at a time so you can kind of see them, but they are in the comments for your note-taking pleasures.
Yeah, no, and these, you don't want to discredit any of these for being important, because it is important for us to prioritize our own self-care and our needs and our wants at the bedside. It is how we effectively show up and do our jobs well, because we're taking aligned action for ourselves and our own well-being. So, after our own basic, physiological needs, you always want to ask yourself, because I think sometimes we do forget this, is do I feel physically and psychologically safe? Am I creating an experience of safety for my patients? A lot of times we navigate a lot of challenging situations because safety is compromised in some way, shape, or form. And we are provided resources through our institutions, I'm sure some better than others, to be able to create the experience for safety for ourselves and for our patients. So it's always really important to make sure that you are having that feeling, because again, your body and your nervous system is going to react to that, even if you're suppressing what those feelings may be like in a moment. So again, it gives you the ability to advocate for yourself and others. Other questions you may ask is, do I need to have and communicate a conscious conversation with XYZ, a peer, a charge nurse, manager, physician, lab, whatever it may be, is could having a conscious conversation, alleviate some of these difficult feelings and emotions that I'm having? Could this conversation provide a little bit more clarity? So again, having awareness of what needs to happen can alleviate a lot of these other things that may push you outside of that window of tolerance, that may cause you to go into a state of overwhelm, just by having the awareness of, oh, I have these questions, I can have a conversation. Have I asked my patient about life outside of illness? If you have a moment to be able to sit down and have
this one.
I do too. If you are working in an environment where your patients are able to communicate and engage with you, think of all the little small talk that you have within a day and ask yourself, have I asked my patient about life outside of illness? What did I learn about their life outside of illness? And how can I incorporate this aspect, some form of it, into their care? How can I pass this along so that I can ensure that this is successfully incorporated into their care? What about their life can I pass on and report that I think might be important for the next nurse to know? And this can be anything about the patient. I worked night shift for the last 4 years. I was at the bedside, and some of the most beautiful conversations and life lessons have come from late night conversations with a patient who couldn't sleep. And whether they realize that they, were able to pass that information along or not, there's things that I still carry with me today. And so it's really making that authentic connection, which really makes someone who's extremely vulnerable feel seen and heard and validated. And once we're able to, have that shift in our own inner world and experience the present moment, can we really step into the role of being a healing presence for others? And so that's kind of like present moment awareness, step 2.
In action. Yeah, for sure.
And it is. And, being a healing presence is being able to hold the potential for wholeness to exist for somebody. And for wholeness to exist, it's not synonymous with curing. That sounds more like, having a conversation with a patient. They may be scared and they may be asking you questions about, well, where is this going? What is going to happen to me? Am I going to get better? And it may look like a nurse or anyone within the profession saying, you know what? I don't know exactly where this is going, but I am confident that you are finding your way. So it's really providing and holding that space and holding certainty that regardless of what is physiologically happening within the body, that you have the ability to recognize your wholeness. So it's a really sweet thing to bring to the bedside. It's really healing for our patients and our family members to see, feel seen and validated in their experience. And then one of the other questions that I really love is, have I laid hands on them in a non-clinical way? So instead of, you think about all of the times you touch your patient within a shift and you're putting IVs in, you're changing dressings, you're doing all sorts of tasks, but have you taken a moment to, place your hand on their shoulder or to hold their hand to, apply that pressure on, their leg that is just soothing? Now, of course, you always, want to ask before you touch, but there can be a lot of healing in just being able to have a moment where you're not performing care, and to be able to have an authentic connection that way.
I love that. And, someone might be watching this who's like, I'm already spread so thin. I can barely keep up with my tasky to-do list. How could I possibly make time for this in my day? And I know, like, for myself working in critical care, like, I live and die by my checklist. Like, 7 years, every single patient, every single time. Like, I do not stray from my checklist. These are the things that I have to get done before I leave the building. And the second I leave the building, thankfully I do shift work. I don't have to think, as long as I know I got those things done, I don't have to worry when I get home that I forgot something.
Mm-hmm.
What would it look like? And I haven't even done this for myself, of like, what if you added to your checklist something like this? Like just a little note, like NC, like non-clinical, or like, is there something that you could just like have a little check box in the corner of your brain that you use? Or, I write a little checklist at the bottom of my notes, is like, could I put something on there of like, have I done something non-clinical for each patient today? Like whether that's asking them about their life or, some sort of non-clinical touch. Or is there like a special treat? Like I love to order dog therapy for people, like if they can have it. Like, is there something that we could do to humanize, and maybe an H for like, how can I humanize this experience or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
Any tips or skills for like making sure that it gets done in a busy shift?
Absolutely. And these are things that you can kind of couple with as well. Especially if you're learning to do this for the first time, it might feel a little bit more comfortable to, maybe you're in the middle of a bed bath or, providing some sort of ADL that it's just like, oh, like, tell me about yourself. What do you enjoy doing? What brings you peace and joy at home? And again, you may be surprised at what your answers are. Maybe it is something that is actually achievable at the bedside. And so we'll never know if we don't ask. And I think so often patients do feel like they are getting moved along the system, that maybe their voice doesn't matter, that they feel invisible. Maybe they just, are blindly putting their trust in you, and they just hope that you're always working in their best favor. And although we always try to, we don't always have the time. And when you get pushed into that state of overwhelm, you do feel that lack, or that mindset of not enough. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough hands. I don't have enough resources to be able to do and provide the care that I want to for this patient. However, when you're able to have that internal shift away from the lack and not enough mindset, you really do move into well, what do I have capacity for right now? And again, that not enough goes away, and that expansion of choice comes into play. So yes, it may be true that I only have an X amount of nurses, or an X amount of supplies, or an X amount of time. But I also now have the ability to make different choices within those limitations to make a difference in care and a difference in experience for me and my patient.
So good. Okay, now these last couple of questions that are on the list really bring us back to the beginning of like the assessment piece, the ABCs of Overwhelm. Tell us about these last 3 questions, or 4 questions, and how they apply to like that ABCs of Overwhelm.
All right, let me see here with my.
Oh yeah.
So yes, so the ABCs of Overwhelm. Again, we use this just because it's super quick. You can remember it for the most part when you're in that state of overwhelm. So maybe you recognize like, I need to come back to myself, or I'm feeling really agitated and restless. Maybe you just got done a code, or maybe you just got back from a scan. Maybe you've just had, a crazy discharge, whatever it may look like in your specific department and role, that you recognize that I'm pushed out of my window. I'm in overwhelm. I need a moment. ABC, super quick. We use this mnemonic a lot in healthcare. So it's awareness, breath, and choice. So for the awareness piece, you're going to ask yourself, what is actually happening right now? And that's when you can ask yourself those present questions. Well, am I hungry? Am I hangry? Am I irritable because, I have a sick kid at home and I didn't sleep well last night? Is my physician hangry or didn't sleep well? Is, really kind of go through what is actually happening, what is true, what may be getting projected versus what is real. How do I know it to be true? So that's really the assessment piece of it, is what is actually happening right now, not only externally within your environment, but also within your body as well. Do I need nourishment? Do I feel safe? did I say yes to something that really was a no, and now it just feels funny in my body? Or did I say no to something that maybe really should have been a yes? So again, stepping into the present moment really allows you to tune into your authentic yeses and nos. Did I say yes to something that I don't have capacity for, and maybe I should delegate that? Where is my breath? So how am I breathing? How am I being while breathing? So am I anxious? Am I moving? And, am I fidgety? Is my, breath shallow? Fast? Am I taking deep breaths in? Am I forgetting to breathe? Because sometimes we pause and we linger. We're a society of breath holders. So am I forgetting to breathe? So by bringing awareness to how you're breathing, you can then shift the way in which you're breathing. So if you're able, a hand on the chest, a hand on the belly, slow it down, keep a steady ingoing and outgoing rhythm, and keep it continuous, because you want to keep your attention in the present on your breath, because you can really truly only breathe in the present moment. And that's why it's such a good anchor to come back to, and you hear it used often. It is one of the few things that we do that can only happen in the present. So when you're able to ground yourself down and anchor through your breath, that's when you're able to kind of have access to all of this other intuitive information outside of just your critical thinking brain. So what other information is coming through? How is my body speaking to me? How is kind of just the feeling in the room? What is all of this other information that I either have been avoiding or that I have not just had in my forefront, that I can do something with? This information provides you that choice. So maybe you did say yes to too many things, and now you have the recognition and the awareness that I don't have capacity, or Britt, I know you use the word bandwidth a lot. I don't have the bandwidth for this.
Yeah.
Slow down your breath. All right. Who can I delegate this to? Feel confident. Who has the skill? Who is available? Who am I able to delegate this to, so that I can come back into my window of tolerance, so that I can shift what I'm experiencing, so that I can show up a more efficient, effective, and grounded healthcare provider?
So good. And all of this is in service of it gets to be healthy and good for everyone. You don't have to choose between excellent clinical patient care and your own health and well-being. Yeah, there's no such thing as balance. I always say we're tilting. Sure, during a code, yes, you are leaning into focusing on the well-being of the patient. But you'll have to be able to kind of come back to the center and tilt afterwards of okay, wow, that was a lot. I leaned really heavy, and the pendulum swung really far into taking really good care of the patient or doing a critical task. Now, what do I need to come back to the center? Do I need to take a walk around the unit and take a couple of deep breaths? Do I need to go to the bathroom and have a cry? Or do I need to go slam some water? That's okay, what do I need right now? And then coming back to the center. That's what being centered is. That's what being grounded is. That is why we want that present moment awareness, to know okay, how do I come back to center where I feel okay in that window of tolerance? How can I create that safety for myself and for my patient? And that's available to everybody.
I mean, if you really think about it, the ABCs of overwhelm and coming back to yourself in the present moment, it's just a recalibration. It's a recalibration of self. It is, where am I at in this moment? How am I experiencing it? And what choices exist here? And it's all a recalibration of self. And we have permission to do it in every passing moment.
Absolutely. Oh, I love it. I could talk about this literally forever, but I don't want to make a very, very, very long live that people won't be able to get through. So this is just a taste, just a little snippet of what's going to be a bigger workshop that you're offering. So I'm going to drop in the comments, if you're watching this live or between now and the next few days, it's not too late to join for a deeper conversation, more of a workshop style that you are offering, that I'm super, super excited about. So let me put that, tell us a little bit about that. How can people work with you more? Tell us about this workshop. What are we going to be covering that we didn't get a chance to talk about right now? And I will put the link to sign up in the comments.
Yes, thank you so much. So I'm going to be holding a free Zoom workshop, Presence and Practice, on July 28th, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 2 p.m. here for my mountain people. And it's an hour long. We're going to go a little bit of a deeper dive of the nuances of present moment awareness. So a little bit more into the specifics of it, but then also learn outside of just the ABCs of Overwhelm, some more strategic ways to be able to experience present moment awareness, but then also how to invite it into your bedside practice. So that'll be a little bit of a deeper dive. And then what I'm hoping, probably by the end of August, knowing myself, I'm hoping to launch a 4-hour experiential workshop where we'll have more group experientials. So we'll be experiencing the present moment together and sharing what those experiences are like for us, and try to navigate through that together. So look forward for more information for that. You can find all of this on my landing page, which we'll
Dropped.
put or somewhere.
It's there.
And you can follow me on Facebook or on Instagram. But my landing page also has information on how to work with me one-on-one as well, because I do take nurse clients. So yes.
Perfect. Yep. Love it. That link is there. So you'll just drop your email and Haley will get a list of everybody and send out a Zoom link. That will not take place here in the Facebook group as like just like a free live, but it will take place on Zoom. So you'll get an email with a link for you to join. So it'll be a little bit more interactive. These lives, it's just a little bit more like us talking in one direction to you, but having that ability to like actually communicate and have like a collective conversation about this is really powerful. So join us for that. I should be there as well. And you kind of touched a little bit about how you take on nurse clients. Let's chat a little bit about the power of mentorship and collaboration, because I know for both of us, that's been a huge part of our personal growth and development. Haley is one of my private clients. We've been meeting together for like over a year now. We've both had babies since we've been working together, which is so funny. So it's kind of been like a little start and stop and taking breaks and just figuring out how to be mothers in business, in nursing, in caregiving. So what has been like the most powerful thing that you have learned from working together? And I always love this, is like the reason why I love to work with caregivers is because it's that perfect example of like everyone has a mentor and everyone is mentoring someone. So it's kind of like that GIF I love so much. I'll try to find it and post it, of like, one girl holding on to like one girl's hand and then she grabs the girl behind her and she pulls her up. And then it's just this like lovely cycle of like personal growth and development that helps everyone. Like we're growing and we're also teaching, and it's so beautiful. So tell me a little bit about like what's the most powerful thing you've learned from putting yourself in environments of being mentored?
So I've been on this personal, growth and development journey for a while, but I think the game changer really was collaborating and signing on with you. And there is so much work that you can do personally and on your own. Again, it's that self-study. And I think that there's something so sacred and beautiful about that. But the caveat of that is a lot of us are looking for that compassionate witness. And I think that it's really easy to lose your sense of community when you are navigating the challenges of burnout. You might have that shared trauma bond, you might have your peer support, but when it actually comes down to the nitty gritty and you're really kind of untangling how this has carried over into your personal life and how you want to move forward, it's so beneficial to do so in the presence of a compassionate witness. To be able to, it is. And I wish that I could articulate it so much better.
You're doing great.
But it really is that feeling of being seen and heard and validated in your experience.
Yes.
Having that compassionate witness is really having someone hold up that mirror for you. Yeah. This is information that you all have access to, internally driven into your bodies, into your energetic anatomy. And a lot of what mentorship and coaches do is really holding that mirror up to your true potential. And to be able to facilitate that for someone else has been such a great privilege. It's such a wonderful role to transition to from the ICU. And so my master's is in complementary and integrative health. I teach yoga. I'm a Reiki master. I maybe later down the road we'll get into death doulaship. So a lot of my coaching has this.
If I have anything to do with it, you absolutely will.
Yes, of course.
I want that to exist so badly in the world.
I love spirituality and end of life care. So a lot of my coaching does have that integrative health and that connection to your which is greater, that flair to it. So if that's something that you're wanting to get more in tune to, recognizing and learning about your own intuition, gathering a deeper connection with whatever your which is greater, and how that, how you wish for that to spill into the way that you take care of others at the bedside and at home. I am your girl. Reach out to me, and yes. I would love to, walk alongside of you during your journey.
And the best place to start is at the workshop. The link is dropped if you're watching live in the Facebook group. It is below, and I will make sure that I send this out to my email list, and you send your email list. So if you haven't joined us in the email inbox situation, if you sign up at the landing page that's dropped, you'll get on Haley's list. And if you're not on mine, just send me a DM and I will get you hooked up. And yeah, any closing thoughts? This was such a good conversation.
No, I just really invite everybody to try to tune into what this experience is like for you. And to, please reach out and share it with me. I'm so curious, but also I want to be able to witness your experience as well. So please share any thoughts, comments, experiences that you have with, stepping into having present moment awareness. And yes, I hope to see you here in the future.
Awesome. I love it. Okay. You guys have a wonderful afternoon. And if you weren't able to watch live, I will be sharing the replay throughout this coming up week. All right. I'll see you guys later. Bye.
Bye.